today's session, we have a guest at our American Center, Mr. Michael Cuneo. He's the Assistant Director, Admissions at Carey Business School, Johns Hopkins University. In today's session, he will be highlighting the difference between an MBA and an MS course, and especially that's related to management programs. So I don't want to take much of your time by explaining more about it. I'll hand over the forum to Michael, and he will explain everything about it. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for having me. So I'll jump right into it. I'm going to talk about MBAs versus specialty master's degrees and what you have to think about when you're considering between the two choices. So there's the type of degree programs, the career path that the types can offer you, the depth of study, that's a difference, the length of the program, cost, recognition, project experience, and internships. So here's some of the MS degree subject areas and MBA concentrations. Real estate and infrastructure, finance, marketing, accounting, human resources, management, business analytics, risk management, healthcare management, hospitality management, entrepreneurship, information technology, supply chain management, operations management. There's all kinds of specific managements, entertainment, sports. Lots of the MS degrees are getting more and more specific. And there's energy, there's oil and gas. You'll find that programs are specific to different areas where there's specialties. So you'll find oil and gas specialty programs, for example, are big in Texas because there's a lot of oil and gas in Texas. You'll find entertainment management is big in the west coast of the United States because that's the entertainment capital of the world, or at least we think it is. And the ones in dark blue are programs that we have at Carey. And then the ones in white are programs that you can find at other schools. So if I tried to put all the different kinds of specialty areas that you would find, there would just be pages and pages. I'm always looking at other schools to see what they have to benchmark, and we just get bogged down in the number of different programs that there are. There's more and more specialties all the time. So, career opportunities. Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? So the MS degree is going to be less flexible. It's going to limit you a little bit more to that functional area. So if you get an MS degree in finance, you're going to kind of be pigeonholed into the finance area. Not necessarily, but in a more limited area. Obviously with an MS degree, you have some flexibility that you wouldn't have with just a BS degree, but not to the degree with an MBA. An MBA is way more flexible. It's useful for changing careers, and it offers vertical, horizontal, and diagonal moves within an industry, outside of an industry, and it is just a little more useful. It's one more thing to consider when you're deciding between them. So requirements. MS degrees generally require little to no work experience. When you're applying, work experience would be a plus in your favor. And the MBAs usually require some amount of work experience. Even if it's not required, you need to consider what are you going to get out of the MBA. The more work experience you have when you do an MBA, the more you're going to get out of the MBA. In the classroom, you're going to know it's a matter of knowing what you don't know, knowing what you need to focus on in the classroom as part of the MBA program. You'll know that with the work experience you have. If you go in right out of an undergrad or with just a little bit of work experience, you're not going to have the experience to know what you need to focus on. So it's something to consider. With an MS degree, you're going to get a slight bump when you graduate. With an MBA, the bump you get will depend on how much work experience you have. So depth versus breadth, what's the focus? In an MS degree, you're highly focused in one specific subject area again. It's going to be finance, a lot of finance, or a lot of marketing. Whereas with an MBA, it's a broad skill set. It's a functional knowledge across many business management areas. Typically, you're going to have a set of core management and business skills that you learn at the beginning that are built on as you go along, and then you'll choose a concentration. That'll be a slight kind of deep dive into a specific concentration area, and you'll have the opportunity to explore using electives. But with an MS degree, there's little to no general business classes, and because of the short time period, there's not going to be time to explore doing electives, and there's not going to be time to take classes outside of that subject area. So it's the concept of being a specialist or a generalist. So how much time are you investing? Full-time MBAs are typically 12 to 24 months. Full-time, especially master's degrees, are typically 12 to 16 months. The shorter the program, the more intense and rigid it's going to be. So that means the less opportunity you have to kind of choose bits of the curriculum you want to do or don't want to do. The less opportunity you're going to have to explore concentrations or electives, and the less opportunity you're going to have to choose different skill sets or paths within that course. Cost. How much can I afford? An MS degree being shorter typically is going to be less expensive. MBA being longer, and just because they're MBAs and more prestigious, are typically more expensive than MS degrees. MS degrees also typically have fewer scholarship opportunities because they're not the flagship kind of showboat programs at the school. MBAs typically have more scholarship opportunities from the school. There's typically more MBA scholarship opportunities from outside the school than there are for specialty master's degrees. So it's something else to consider. So, how will my degree be seen in the industry? These specialty master's degrees are new as compared to the MBA. Sometimes they're unknown to those outside of a specific industry. The MS in finance has gained ground. People who graduate with an MS in finance are doing very well in the investment banking industry and the banking industry as a whole. But the MBA is well established. It was really the first program established by Harvard, business program established in 1908. It's kind of the Cadillac of business degrees. It's the terminal degree of business programs. It's world recognized. So, another aspect is projects and experiential learning. Because of their limited duration, MS degrees traditionally have little to no experiential learning. They might have some small real-life projects, but not to the degree that MBA programs typically have. That's starting to change. Schools are starting to see the need for experiential learning in MS degrees, so they're trying to put more smaller experiential learning opportunities into the MS degrees. But for the most part, it's not as much as with the MBAs. Because MBAs are longer, you should be looking for MBAs that have experiential learning that's a major factor during that study period. Projects that are generally resume worthy, so like real life projects with outside clients, these are projects that you can put on a resume. One difference, one-year MBAs, because of their short time span, don't have often that opportunity for experiential learning, so you might not get that in a one-year MBA. That's a trade-off if you do a one-year MBA. internships. Will I be able to participate in an internship? So internships usually take place in the summer between years 1 and 2. So if you're in a 1-year program, there is no summer between year 1 and 2. So typically you're not going to be able to do an internship. Also, because 1-year programs are very intensive, you're basically in class all day, every day for an entire year, typically August to August or a full 12 months. You're not going to have time to do an internship. So that's something else to consider. If an internship, getting that experiential learning outside of the school, outside of the classroom is very important to you, a 1-year specialty master's degree or a 1-year MBA may not be a good match for you. Now, one difference is OPT. If you're familiar with that, that's optional practical training where you can stay in the US and work for a year or, depending on the program, 3 years after you graduate. That is a form of internship, paid internship, and you do that after you graduate. With MBAs, they can either be required, recommended, or provided by the MBA program. It's pretty rare that they're provided by the MBA program. That's more of a co-op program where it's built into the curriculum, so you have a guaranteed job and it's part of a class. That's pretty rare. Most of the time they're just recommended, and of course the career development offices work very closely with you to help you get a internship. It's also pretty rare that they're required because schools can't guarantee that you're going to get an internship, so it would be unfair to require you to have an internship to graduate if we can't guarantee that you're going to get an internship. So, STEM. What's STEM? STEM are programs that are science, technology, engineering, or medicine. What's the advantage of going for a program that's STEM? You get 3 years of OPT after graduation. So that means you can work in the United States for 3 years without getting an H-1B visa. You don't have to go through the lottery. You don't have to find a company that will sponsor you. They just have to hire you. Whereas with all the other types of programs, it's only 1 year. So that's a big difference. So I will lead into our programs after that. These are the things you need to consider for all the programs you're looking at. I'll go into our programs now, including the programs that we have, which are 3 that are STEM. And then you can use that to think about your decisions when you're looking at schools in the US and even around the world as you're going through what you want to do in the future and where you want to apply. So we have these 7 focus areas. Our dean calls them areas of challenge and opportunities. Our dean, who's about to actually retire in June of next year, he just announced it. They're business analytics and risk management, entrepreneurship, finance, healthcare management, marketing, real estate and infrastructure, and information systems. So we have specialty master's degrees built around some of these: business analytics, finance, healthcare management, marketing, real estate and infrastructure, and information systems. You can see these 3 are STEM. So if you do these, you would have the 3 years of OPT when you graduate. All these programs are 1 year. They go from August to August. You start in August, you graduate in the following August. They're cohort-based, so that means you're actually put into a group of about 30 to 35 other students, and you go through that entire program in classes with that same group of people. There are 36 credits, and then depending on the subject area, you'll either be in Baltimore or Washington, D.C. You all probably know where Washington is. If you don't know where Baltimore is, we're just 50 miles north of Washington. And we have a pretty diverse international student body and faculty. The MBA is about 50% international, And the MS degrees are actually, the majority are international. So the way the curriculum works for the MS degrees, there's a special orientation for international students. There is an orientation for everyone for each program. And then we divide our semesters into terms. So there's fall 1 and 2, spring 1 and 2, and summer 1 and 2. So you pretty much have no time off except for a short break in the winter. There's a little bit of business foundations, but the vast majority of the courses are the functional core that you're studying. So that whether that's marketing or finance or business analytics, and then some electives under that functional core. So you do have a little bit of a choice under that subject area, but you can't take any classes outside of that subject area. So if you're taking finance, you can't take marketing classes. The MBA, our global MBA, this was our first full-time program. It's 2 years full-time. Again, it's cohort-based, but in this case, it's only the first year that you do in a cohort, so you go through the entire first year with the same group of students. It's 54 credits. It is only in our Baltimore campus, and it focuses on 2 client-based experiential learning projects. They are real-life consulting projects with outside clients. The first project happens in the developing economy, and the second project you have a choice of 3 projects. But they are both consulting projects with clients that hire us as a school to create consulting groups for them to work on a business problem. For the MBA, 2 years, it starts off the same, summer intensive for international students. Quantitative skills boot camp. We have a lot of students who come from non-business backgrounds in the MBA program, people making big career changes. So this is a program that's online. It just helps people get up to par on quant ability so that when people start classes in the fall, everybody's kind of on the same page and nobody falls behind in class. And then there's orientation for everyone. And then in fall 1 and 2 and spring 1 and 2, everyone does the core management and business courses that are required of everyone. And the first experiential learning course, which is called Innovation for Humanity. Then in the second year, that's when you choose a concentration and do that. There's a lot more flexibility here. You can choose more when you want to take classes, which classes you want to take, as long as you fulfill your concentration. You can take electives, and you can actually take more classes than you need to graduate. So some students will do more than one concentration. They'll do a concentration and a specialization, and you can take classes in the evenings or on weekends. So some students will do small internships and continue to do an internship during the second year so that they're doing experiential learning as well during the second year. And then there's the second experiential learning course that they have to choose from, Discovery to Market, City Lab, or Health Services Management course as well during the second year. These are the 5 concentrations you can choose from for the MBA: entrepreneurship, finance, healthcare management, marketing, and real estate. And these are the experiential learning projects. The first one is required of everyone. Again, Innovation for Humanity. It's a project that could be in any industry, but it always ties into the UN's 17 goals for sustainable development. Discovery to Market, then there's a choice of these 3. Discovery to Market is about the intersection between business and technology. So it's working with a researcher or scientist at Johns Hopkins. City Lab is kind of like Innovation for Humanity, but in a neighborhood in Baltimore or Washington, D.C. And then Healthcare Management Consulting takes place in the hospital at Johns Hopkins. We also have some dual degree programs. We have a JD MBA with the University of Maryland School of Law, an MBA MA in Design Leadership with the Maryland Institute College of Art, an MBA MD with the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, MBA MPH with the Bloomberg School of Public Health, and then we have various other MBA MAs with other schools at Hopkins as well, like an MA in Communication, Government, and Engineering. So we have all these programs. We have specific webinars that go into the details for the programs. If you just go to our calendar on our website, there's about 2 a month for each program. You can find a webinar for the program. The application, pretty simple. Everyone asks, when do you have merit scholarships? Of course, and when you're applying, the application is also an application for a scholarship. So merit means work experience, GMAT or GRE, and undergraduate or other degree program GPA. So those are the 3 major factors for scholarships, and scholarships run from $10,000 up to full tuition. And then there's some smaller. This is automatically you're applying for when you apply for any program. There are also some smaller endowed scholarships that you apply for separately through financial aid. But the most you can get through one of those is only about $2,000. The application itself, it's online. There's 2 required essays. We need your resume. We need 1 recommender, the GMAT or the GRE. You'll do an interview depending on which program you apply for. It could be in a different format. For the MBA, it will be live. It will be either in person or on Skype. For the MS degrees, it will be recorded video. So you log into a website. You'll see a recording of someone from admissions asking you a question, and then you'll have a few seconds to think about it, and then you record your answer. We generally require an English language exam like the TOEFL or the IELTS. However, if you went to a university where the mode of instruction was exclusively in English, you can ask for a TOEFL waiver, and generally we'll grant that. And we also require a course-by-course credential evaluation. So if any degree that you receive from outside of the US has to receive one of these evaluations. All the specialty master's degrees do not require work experience. If you have it, it's a bonus, but you don't need it. The global MBA, we prefer you to have 2 or more years of work experience. It's possible to get into the program without, but it's much more difficult. And the MBA MPH strictly requires 2 years of healthcare related work experience. These are some examples of the essays, just to emphasize that we don't take a statement of purpose. The first essay is required. It's what our motto, doing business with humanity in mind, means to you. And then for the second essay, you can choose between 5 topics. This is all on the website in the application. But you can see that it's definitely not a statement of purpose, so don't try to kind of use a statement of purpose you already wrote and shoehorn it into one of these. It's not going to work. And more about the details about the English languages exam: TOEFL minimum 100, IELTS 7, PTE 70. And again, if you went to school where it was taught exclusively in English, you can ask for a TOEFL waiver. And more about the credential evaluation: we take them from these 3 agencies. It's a course-by-course evaluation. And we don't offer conditional admissions on this. It has to be done in order to receive an admissions offer. or decision. These are the upcoming deadlines. For most of the programs, the next deadline is January 23rd with a final deadline of April 10th. And for these three, Master of Finance, Master of Marketing, and Business Analytics, it is January 9th and April 3rd. If you are interested in Business Analytics, I would highly recommend not waiting until the final deadline. It's a very popular program. It's probably going to fill up on the second deadline and it'll be closed. And that is it. This is me. I look much better in that picture because I'm not sick. And that's my contact information. I do the recruiting and I lead everyone through the process for the Global MBA. So I'd be happy to help you with that. If you are interested in another program, please contact me and I will connect you with the admissions officer who works with that program. They'd be happy to talk to you. So does anyone have any questions?
Some degrees require 2 years of work experience. So what kind of work experience would you want the students to have?
So for MBAs, there's various levels of work experience. For us, it's 2 or more years of work experience. Some it's 3, some it's 4. It's usually professional work experience, and professional work experience means work experience that requires a degree. For us, no. We don't have a prerequisite as far as work or educational background. You can come from any work or educational background and apply to our MBA. We have many people from many different types of backgrounds, not stereotypical business backgrounds, people with degrees in the arts, people who come from politics, people who come from the military, you name it. So we don't have prerequisites.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, this is about writing a GRE or GMAT. Okay. When you say MBA, most of the people go for writing GMAT, but we understand even the institutions accept GRE. So which one would you advise if the student wants to send a very competitive application? So you can say whether you prefer GRE or GMAT, and repeat the question.
So the question is, do we have a preference over the GRE or the GMAT? We do not. And it's actually, we've come up with a really good system for making that pretty fair. We convert the GRE to a GMAT equivalent, and when the student's application goes to the admissions committee, all the admissions committee sees is what the GMAT equivalent would be and what the quant and verbal percentile is. So they have no idea when they look at the statistic on paper whether it was originally a GMAT or originally a GRE.
So as far as the MS programs are concerned, are they all one-year programs?
The question is whether all MS programs are one-year programs. Some at our school they're all one-year programs. At other schools they may be 1.5 or 1 year. But most schools are concentrating on getting shorter MS programs because people don't want to take that much time off of work. They want to get as much education as possible in as short a time as possible and then get back into the workforce.
So the Masters in Engineering Management, if the program is for 2 years, then how would you compare it to an MBA?
Honestly, I can't answer that question because I don't know anything about Masters in Engineering Management. Do we have that?
Yeah.
We may have that at Hopkins, but not at the business school.
It's there.
Yeah. That's at the School of Engineering. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about the programs at the School of Engineering.
Interdisciplinary. So partially they have to do fewer credits with the management program and fewer credits in engineering. So there is an equal concentration on both areas, both engineering and management. That's how the engineering management program works, because I've seen a couple of course curriculums at various universities. So the, out of 36 credits that you need to clear for a, let's say, a master's program of 32 to 36, close to 18 to 20 credits are from management and the balance from the engineering.
The way we are able to, also the way we're able to make it 1 year is we have the classes in the summer, whereas I don't believe the School of Engineering has the classes in the summer.
But then they would probably be doing internships as well.
Correct, probably.
I don't get it.
Any more questions? Then I have a lot of questions. I will ask.
Okay.
Okay. This is regarding the credential evaluation. Okay. I would like you to just brief us as the credential. Many of the applicants, when they apply, they would not have completed their undergraduates or any other qualification that they are doing. In such a case, the students will get only up to, let's say if they are doing engineering, some 6 semesters of mark sheets, and if they are doing a 3-year arts and science program, they would have only about 4 semesters. So how would this credential evaluation through WES or any agency that you mentioned would help you decide their equivalence to get admitted to your program?
So about the credential the question is about the equivalency credential evaluation for students who have not yet graduated. It's important because, so we would go by the GPA for what they have completed, and then once they've graduated, they would get an updated evaluation that for their completed degree and their diploma. Why it's important? So anybody could, you'd think, oh, anybody could do a mathematical conversion of a GPA from a 10-point scale to a 4-point scale. Yes, obviously. WES, or whichever agency you go with, does much more than that. It's not a strict mathematical conversion. They take into account the school you go to, the highest marks that the students typically receive, the averages that students typically receive. I use the example of, a top engineering school in India. The highest marks that students may get are 76, maybe 76%. In the U.S., that's a C. That's terrible. But so when WES does the conversion, it could actually be a 3.5, which is a good GPA. So it's actually to your advantage to do the credential evaluation. You'll actually get a much higher GPA than you think you have on a US scale. And with there being thousands and thousands of schools in India and across the world, there's no way for us to have that knowledge database of what the averages are at different schools and what the reality is in different schools. That's why we rely on places like WES to have that knowledge to do that for us.
I think I may have one last question and then I'll wind up. One more. I think there are no more questions. That's it. I think we found it.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah.
Bearing with me getting over my cold.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, and I hope whoever gathered here and those who have joined us online would have benefited by the information shared by him. And I hope if you have such questions, please feel free to send it through the comments in the FB of US Consulate Chennai, or you can even reach out to our offices here in the American Center. We would be happy to help you with any answers. And I take this opportunity to inform you about our next forthcoming session. On coming Thursday, that is December 13th, we are having a FB live session again. That's by representative from University of Chicago, and they're going to talk about fundamentals of graduate studies. So this would help students who are actually going to start the process, because you can very well understand what is it like studying a graduate program in the US, and what should you be prepared with, and what is required of you to do, etc. So I invite those who are just going to start the process to definitely attend this session and benefit by this. And thanks for joining us, and do keep watch us on the FB.
Thank you.